Okay, so hi everybody. Welcome to the introduction for the channel here. Talk to your plants. I am Fern Lovebond, and this is my excuse to talk to interesting people about beliefs and religion and things. I'm a reasonably intelligent, but not super smart, but not especially stupid individual, and I've been interested in religion and beliefs all my life. So I've studied and evaluated a lot of different forms of religious belief, sometimes just from books, sometimes just from personal practice. And after all the digging I could handle, I realized I couldn't really believe in any of it anymore, so I am an atheist. But my goal here is not to dissuade you of your beliefs, but to talk to people I am interested in to better understand why they believe what I see as unreasonable things or why they don't believe them, in the hopes that I can have a more meaningful and well rounded ideas about my fellow human beings and whether they might be plants or not. So, if you're someone who is looking at religion or atheism or just beliefs in general, I might want to talk to you because talking to your plants helps them grow. And wouldn't you like to help me grow? And of course, one such person who is helping me grow is the one on the screen that you can see right now. I suppose I will call her a co host. It's the best term I could come up with. Uh, she's a self assessed, highly sensitive person, or HSP, a Seventh day Adventist, as she puts it, or SDA, she sometimes calls herself. So Chloe has a lot going on from an on again, off again parenting schedule to authoring a book and working as a special care provider. And of course, her infinite patience in putting up with wrong, like very long, rambling monologues from me. So I affectionately call her Chloe Plant, and I want to welcome her now. Hi, Chloe Plant.
Hi.
Hello. It is so good to see you tonight.
Thank you.
Hope
Good to
I know
see you
your day has been slightly challenging, um, in no small part because of me. So,
Oh, ditto.
anyway, I'm I'm hoping that you can give me a little bit of you've prepared something about like what you're here for and where you're coming from, like your background religiously and beliefs wise, and where you are now. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, the reason why I sort of like prepared it is because without prep and framework, I could go on forever, and that's a problem. So
Okay.
yeah,
All right. Well, let's
um,
get to it. Go ahead. Tell me
yeah.
about yourself.
Well, since I am, um, we gotta put an H in there because okay, pet peeve right away. Sorry, it's nothing
Oh,
religious.
whoops. Oh, I messed it up.
Yeah. Um,
That is an immediate knowledge about our show is that I will screw up. There you go.
so will I. All right. So
Typos.
looking at like, some basic things and about my beliefs and the evolution of my beliefs, and then also like looking at where my current stance is. So to just kind of go over that, I was born and raised in a curated environment, which could easily be called a bubble. And although homeschooled, I was privileged that my mom was effortful to expose us to other cultures, not only so that we'd be well rounded, but also to, just combat prejudice and xenophobia more intentionally than probably some other homeschooling moms or any moms necessarily did. I got to travel a lot overseas when I was very young, including some significant time in Jordan and Egypt, Middle Eastern countries that get a lot of heat, a lot of xenophobia in the news and such.
Wait,
Um,
I honestly, we have talked so much and I didn't even know this.
really?
Egypt?
Yes.
Yeah, like Egypt, for some reason that's catching me by surprise. I didn't realize.
Yeah, yeah. I was on an archaeological dig 2 times in Jordan when I was 14 and 17. The first time in 14 was like 2.5 weeks, and then there was a 2.5 week tour in Egypt with another college group. And then when I was 17, I did a full 6 week archaeological dig in Jordan.
Interesting. And you didn't get attacked by any zombies or, like mummies and stuff?
No. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Just checking. I'm sorry. Please go on.
That's all right. So now, while the whole thing about like the global traveling and stuff and introduction to other cultures may not, I mean, maybe it does or maybe it doesn't seem directly related to religion, it had a huge impact on my values that will, I'm sure, like just more fully unfold over time in the conversations here with Fern. For those of you who tune in and start walking with us. And while I was not immune to certain pressures of religious context growing up, um, I was kind of, as a child, more of like the sunny, catching butterflies, listening to your story hour tapes, Chronicles of Narnia, Pilgrim's Progress, music lessons and animals, pets kind of kid. versus the more stringent households with more of the fear mongering that other people have shared that they went through. So I do see that as a privilege that helped me to grow up with a different and, well, privilege in some ways because it gave me like a better childhood to a certain extent, but then also later made for some rude awakenings. But yeah, it helped me grow up with a different and rosier church experience earlier on than others have had. But it didn't stay that way. I did get my degree from Andrews University in Adventist College, and that did further strengthen and shape me. I had different traumas, ordeals, losses, things that started to give me some of my own questions about God. And and then less than a year after I graduated, I got married and almost instantly became a pastor's wife, which was when the truly major changes began. Um, and theologically, I say that theologically, I'm SDA, Seventh Day Adventist, and it's actually not just my acronym. It is, not a denomination, but SDA. That's just, yeah, that is our acronym for
Which
Seventh
is
Day Adventist.
seventh. Okay, I was gonna
Seventh,
say
yes,
SDA. Most people outside of your particular group do not necessarily know that term, so we might have to specify it each time you decide to use it. Just saying.
that is fine. And I mean, and not just each time, but like the whole Chloe HSP SDA thing, like that's just going to be there, so we can do that however many times.
Just
Um,
free to confuse all the newcomers every time. It'll be great.
we can define it and hopefully deconfuse newcomers every time. So, um, because of things that happened to me as a pastor's wife, I now currently I identify as theologically SDA as well as ecumenically friendly regarding Christian values that are not doctrinally unique per se, but that other denominations practice more richly than mine. For example, my denomination, according to the stats that were presented to me one time in my own department, we struggle a lot with regular Bible reading and prayer, even though one of our early nicknames was People of the Book back in the 1800s. I found that to be ironic because, just I know that every Christian denomination has a thing about the Bible, but in mine, I felt that there's this extra huge one, and so then I was really quite mind blown when I found out that statistically we actually struggle a lot with regular Bible reading, actual reading of the Bible. Probably because I think there's such a confidence in what we believe that I think people then just take for granted, like, okay, well, I know what I need to know, so I just don't really have to engage, with the
So
Bible
are
anymore.
wait a minute. So are we explaining your religion or are we explaining you? Because I'm kind of just wanting to get a knowledge about like where you're coming from, what brings you to this point where you're going to have a conversation on a regular basis with some anti-theist like me.
Hmm. Well, I did start to go into a tangent I didn't prepare, so now I'll get back to what I did prepare. Um, so, but it's just part of the background and things. So, yeah, um, the reason why I'm theologically Adventist, but not connected in other ways. There was some complex betrayal trauma and spiritual abuse that was spread out over a period of years, both during and after I was pastor's wife with my husband. I am emotionally and culturally divorced from the institution of my denomination in most ways as it currently stands. I had a very
Wait, so you're
public,
an atheist now? No?
no, no,
Oh, okay.
emotionally and culturally divorced from the institution, but theologically still an Adventist. Um, I had a very public and unplanned meltdown on my personal Facebook last spring, wherein something crux that finally burst out of me was, "My church fucked me," you know, um, and I
Wait, your
just
your church what did they do? Your church something I didn't catch that word.
are you being funny?
No, I'm asking you what you just said.
I
I wasn't clear on what you just said.
Well, something that came tumbling out of me at that time was like, I was saying that like, my world came crumbling down because my church fucked me.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I
and
honestly didn't catch the fucked there. I which is too bad because I love blue language and I feel like we should use more of it. And we are not worried about,
censoring
monetizing this
or yeah.
channel. So fuck yes, your church fucked you. Okay. I'm on
And
the
yeah.
right page now.
So, and then right after that, I was like, there, I said it now. I'll never publish a book with any Adventist publisher, blah, blah, blah. And I've been considering making that whole thing kind of like my inaugural YouTube video, except that like I didn't want it to be like used or shown as some sort of like ministry resource, like, oh, people who are left out of church, whatever. But I did want to like but I have been wrestling about it because I want to like document my journey and then let people know who have been hurt in church that I'm safe. So, I don't, because of all that, kind of what that gives a window into, I don't trust most people in positions of authority more than ever in my life. I take people one at a time, both in leadership and in general. And profession of Christian faith really means nothing to me. Only a demonstration of trustworthy character over time is what matters to me, however you identify in terms of your religious and ideological beliefs. And on that note, to go really into the present, Fern didn't know I was going to do this, but um, when Fern and
I didn't know you were gonna do any of this, frankly, so that's no big
well,
surprise.
here. All right,
I'm
so
so ignorant.
uh, except that you make me feel ignorant when we get going.
No, not at all.
Okay. So, when Fern and I first met, I was in a slightly more staunch place about what I understood religion to be because of my own convictions about what Christianity is meant to be, because of what I see, how I perceive its true implications should be. And this stuck place that I was in was all the stronger because I already felt disillusioned about organized religion. And to avoid long tangents as to why, Fern was instrumental in helping me have a more open mind to what they've been saying about religion. We
I
still,
was?
yeah.
No, you seemed right off the bat when we met, like, you were already, like I mean, we met because you were a guest on an atheist podcast.
Yeah.
Like, you explicitly had already reached out to somebody who regularly does an atheist podcast, and
hmm
I heard you because I happened to be listening to her podcast,
hmm
um, and then I contacted you on the dumpster fire, also known as Twixter or whatever it is. Anyway, so yeah, but, so you were already, like, in a very, like, open to non-Christian views kinda space. I didn't think I
I
really had anything to do with that.
no, I was. Well, I mean, really, it was also like that whole thing was more like I'm just gonna like invite myself onto the show and just have an adventure, and I don't really have a plan or preparation. I'm just gonna go and be myself and see what happens, kind of thing. Um, but to get back to this though, like because I just want to say again that like there was a stuck place I was in, and I was extra stuck there because I already felt disillusioned about organized religion.
So
Um,
what is it you were stuck in exactly? Like, somewhere between belief and looking for a different religion or something?
no, I'll read this again. Um,
Sorry, I apologize. I got disrupted when you started talking about me, my favorite subject.
so when Fern and I first met, I was in a slightly more staunch place than I am now about what I understood religion to be because of my
Ah,
own convictions about what Christianity is meant to be, because of what I
ah.
see that its true implications should be. And I was very, very extra stuck in this place because I already felt disillusioned about organized religion. And so Fern and I would still go at it like cats and dogs, like about religion, this and that. And I'm like, but it shouldn't be that way, and what it's meant to be, and blah blah blah, you know. And so Fern, and so what I'm getting to though is that like avoiding some very long tangents as to why Fern has been instrumental in helping me have a more open mind to what they've been saying about religion. We still are very obviously atheo-pagan versus Christian, but more than that, we're friends and humans who each already had and still have a very strong passion for promoting what we believe to be anti-harm, however different that can look, and sometimes it's similar. Um, Fern's humanity,
I already said I was anti-theological, anti-religious, yeah.
but that's not synonymous with anti-harm. But anyway, I know we'll get some
Well,
more of
tomato, tomato.
that. Okay, so Fern's humanity has had a major impact on my life, and that impact on my stuckness about religion happened when they showed me an empathy I will never forget in a moment when I was cracked open in pain and shame about an ordeal that I'm currently going through. I expected Fern to be happy about certain things that I wasn't sure I believed in anymore because, hey, they're an atheist. And of course, right there is a window into how Christians are conditioned to objectify atheists as unfeeling opponents versus humans to get to know and walk with. And instead, in that moment, Fern quietly said to me something like, "It doesn't make me happy at all to see part of your world crumbling." and other things as well that I can't fully remember. But in that moment, not only did Fern become even more human to me than atheist, but in experiencing such unique empathy in such a vulnerable moment when my jugular was exposed in so many ways, so to speak, Fern really embodied a really rare character that I'd never known from any Christian. And that right there started to open my mind further to listen much less defensively about Fern's issues with harmful ways that religion is perpetuated. I still believe in God and the Bible and many other complex things that will sound sentimental, subjective, and downright magical, I guess. But I've definitely undergone a softening shift in how I look at religion. My faith is, and to close, my faith is hugely experiential more than anything, though I anchor it in my convictions of what it means to be biblical loyal. Biblically loyal, that's a term I've used. I do have an
A
education.
term we will dive into in another episode, I'm sure, but
Yeah,
not right now.
yeah. I do have an education. I do know stuff. In fact, my degree was religion. I have a BA in religion, two minors in communications and psychology. And without meaning to, apparently my grades were just good enough to get me into Theta Alpha Kappa, but I wasn't like knowing of that or invested in that. So it's like, yay, cool. But anyway, but it gave me some extra bling to wear when I graduated. And I was like, I'm gonna wear all the bling. So because I was
Alright,
just glad
so
to make it through. I'm
let's
getting back.
get
I'm getting
let's
back.
get to
I'm
where
getting
you
back.
are,
I'm
because
getting back.
yeah,
I'm
we're
getting
getting
back.
a little
I'm
long.
getting back. I'm getting back.
I
So
heard you.
I do have an education and all that. My learning style was and is such that certain things are hard for me to regurgitate verbatim, the way that I feel other academics can do, and the way that Fern even can do, which has given me some insecurities about seeming like I'm not smart or have no business having these sorts of conversations. But I know that I'm not an idiot. I bring to the table what I can. And one of those things that I bring is a willingness to always keep learning because it's truth that I love and want. My bio for the Chloe HSPSDA says, I love studying life and I hate bad answers. I'm a deep thinker and I try. I'm very aware that I'm not perfect. No one is, but some people think that they've arrived, but I'm definitely not one of them. So,
Okay. So, what I'm hearing is that you're, like, this far. I'm holding my fingers, like, an inch away. You're, like, this far from becoming an atheist.
no,
My goals will be
no,
realized.
no, trust
No,
me, there's going to be plenty of time and ways in which I will piss you
nah,
off.
I don't need you to be an atheist.
I don't need you to be a Christian.
Oh, well, that's good because I wouldn't wanna disappoint you. Um, yeah, alright. Well, thank you for kinda going into all of that, despite the fact that you many, many times refused my plant-like basis, my chlorophyll-based life, uh, calling
What?
me human. Human. No, I'm teasing, I'm just kidding, I know. The plant thing is just
Yeah,
it's kind of a joke.
yeah.
Okay, so I don't really have anything written down about my own background, but
You don't need
because
to because you
this
don't get lost like me.
yeah, well, there's that. Or maybe I do, who knows? No, so let's see. I've already explained that the channel is basically just my excuse to be able to talk to people about beliefs and what have you. Um, religion, the reason I think it's been so key in my life is that I was raised in a fundamentalist sect of Christianity, which I learned very early on was really not for me. I was raised Mormon in the heart of Mormonism, Salt Lake City, Utah, of all places. And then, when I started to think for myself and be able to reason and logic out and what have you, and I was gonna say Gesundheit, but that's a cough. I don't Why do we say Gesundheit for sneezes, but we don't have anything to say about people's coughs? That's weird.
I don't know.
It's very strange.
Pandemic
Next
gave
time
us a lot more things to say about people's coughs.
well, there's that. You wear a mask.
And I tell the kids, coughs belong in your elbow.
There you go. That's anyway, so yeah, so I grew up with this Mormon upbringing, and one of the things that I began to hear very early on was about um the importance of God and how important it is to have God in your life and listening to the church. The church was kind of the end all be all authority about the nature of reality and belief and what God is and all of that. And I very quickly learned that the church itself was founded on a lot of deceptions and exploitation. Um, this was during the early days of the internet, and you couldn't really trust everything that you read online even then, of course. But it was actually really easy to get access to various educational websites. The .edu domain was still actually legitimate. If you went to a domain name that ended with .gov or .edu, it was absolutely either a government or an educational institution. It was not going to be that somebody bought the domain name and is pretending. So I learned a lot of interesting things about the history and the facts about the Mormon Church and about the prophet, as they call him, Joseph Smith, which
We both had prophets in our
prophets, yeah,
because yeah,
it's made me learn how to do distrust the concept of prophets in religious
understandable.
claims very very much. They're just people. They're just people. Anyway, so after leaving Mormonism, I thought I would dig into all the different foundations. I thought, well, Mormonism is like apparently, a bad fruit, but the tree's got to be something on the tree has to be the good fruit.
Mm,
And so I started trying to study and find the tree, the real roots of belief and religion and spirituality. So that led me down a Protestant rabbit hole as well as going into like the Catholic side of things and learning about the different forms of Christianity that there were out there. At the same time, I was starting to become a teenager, and I was so tragic. A gothic punk kid, and God, it's so pathetic.
no.
There were all these, of course, people claiming to be witches and doing witchcraft and playing with tarot and Ouija boards and things like that. So I got exposure to like the occult side of things as well, and I was very credulous. I bought into a lot of kind of nonsense about spirituality. Um, I mean, it's all nonsense, but I didn't realize that until much later. I was willing to say that spirituality is nonsense, but this other kind is fine, and it was I led myself down some pretty silly rabbit holes. But it also kind of sparked an interest in an understanding of like how culturally we come to believe things, like
Mm,
how social conditioning and socializing will augment what we think about reality, will change how we perceive the world around us. I've always been interested in those kinds of things. I just kind of have a deep appreciation for what I see as the sociological aspects of being a human being in society. And
mm,
religion is a massive part of our sociology and our culture. And so I just began to explore more and more of that. And as I learned more interesting facts and looked at like the history and the academics behind a lot of the religious formations in society, I just slowly lost belief. There are things that I thought, well, but at least I know that this is true. Well, no, it turns out that that's probably not true. Well, but I know that, the stuff in the Bible, this part of it at least is true. But no, it turns out that was actually based on nonsense too. And then, but we can trust the Gospels at least. Well, no, actually, I mean, technically, it turns out they weren't written for like 40 years after the fact based on oral traditions from people who wrote it down in a completely different language from the sources that we have now. And so, like, just the more I learned about Christianity, the less likely it seemed to be. And eventually I stumbled into the perspective that like you can't if you can discount any form of Christianity, you can discount all of them. And moreover, if you can discount
how?
any kind of well, we're not going to get into the details right now. This is just me talking about where I came from. Recognizing that not only could you do that with Christianity, but you could do that with Islam, which I looked into briefly, very briefly, and found it to be even more misogynistic and problematic than Christianity. And it was basically founded on the Judeo Christian tradition anyway. So by that point, all of that stuff had come into suspect, kind of, like I'm just no longer that credulous. It's all kind of fishy. So I discounted Islam very, very quickly before I could learn really as much as I probably should have. I got interested in, of course, Eastern religions, and I'd already been exposed to a lot of New Age and stuff. I knew somebody who was a Baha'i. I knew people that were into crystals and tarot shit and just a bunch of nonsense, woo New Age crap.
Hmm.
Um, so eventually, after enough searching and enough pondering, through Western religions and Eastern religions, understanding Hinduism and well, I should say understanding Hinduism, but understanding enough about Hinduism to recognize that it basically has the same problems as most every other religion that I'd ever really come across. Coming to find that Buddhism was meant to be kind of a breakaway from religion, and then it got swept up into the religious paradigm as well. Eventually, enough of my understanding about the nature of belief and where belief comes from and how cultures develop belief, it kind of got me to recognize that, like, I just couldn't believe it anymore. Like, I just lost the capacity to believe in the supernatural at all. And I had at that point in my life, I had an experience that I'm not going to detail. It's a private experience. In the same way that you'll hear a lot of religious people talk about their personal experience of God and how important it is to them, and how it's the basis of their belief. Well, for me, I had a personal experience that was very powerful, and like I said, I'm not going to detail it, but essentially, for me, it affirmed that absolutely all of the supernatural stuff that we think is important, that we find ourselves afraid about or inspired by, it's all just human psychology projecting itself onto the universe. And I just can't believe it. I can't believe in all the supernatural stuff anymore. I just can't. So I am irreligious. And after a number of years of continuing, because I'm still interested in how societies work and how cultures interact, continuing to study religion has led me to understand that religion as a whole is actually a net negative for the human species, that it has, I don't like to use this word except in a specific case, but it has retarded our growth as a species. It has held us back from rewarding and fruitful and encouraging and compassionate behaviors more than it has encouraged any of those things. So I am now not just atheistic, but also anti theistic, irreligious, and sacrilegious, and I will continue to be so until my beliefs change. So far, everything I've come to learn, the more I learn, the more I educate myself about various religions, about beliefs, about philosophy, the more convinced I am that there is no such thing as the supernatural. There is no such thing as any kind of God. So that's where I am now. And weirdly
How
enough,
did we get here?
Chloe wants to talk to me about those things. It's very weird,
I was
very
willing when you
strange.
asked.
Yeah, so whether or not Chloe will stick around for this, I don't know after everything I just said, but
Oh,
we'll s we'll see
oh,
what
oh,
happens.
I think you know I'm sticking.
I hope so. But I'm so glad that you did decide to go ahead and do this with me. I
Yeah,
appreciate it,
yeah.
and,
I think it's
I know
I think it's
ta-da.
uh, I think it's really fascinating because something that I've always said. I loved taking A&P when I was in high school, and I was just so lit in my brain about like learning the different parts of the body and how they function and how they interrelated. And so I have a way that I came to express it is that I am really passionate and curious about the anatomy and physiology of relationships and spirituality. And so that just makes every human and their journey so interesting to me. Um, and so like what you just said, what you just said, rather than feeling repelled, I'm just very curious, and we'll be picking apart a lot of stuff in each other and just in the world. And I
I
was like holding back from interrupting, um, even though later on we won't hold back from interrupting. But since this is the intro, I was. But
right,
like
yeah,
when you were
thank
talking
you, I
about,
appreciate that.
but but in the since you, the way that you were talking about religion retarding our growth and such, the slightly older Chloe would have been like, oh, but when it's done the wrong way and da 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 da, and then that's
Yeah,
what I was talking about because the thing is that it is so rarely ever done the right way that it's almost as if it's not at all, and so that leaves me at this place of like, I get it. um, I still I like in my denomination, I am in some ways I'm too biblically loyal for some things that they want, and then I am also not culturally loyal enough for other things that they want that they say are based in scripture. Um, and so but they're pretty arbitrary. Like jewelry, for example. Like here I've got I've got like five piercings in a necklace, and that is not, culturally traditional. But like, Fern, you talked about religion retarding our growth and actually reducing certain kinds of, just benefits and behaviors and capacity for being compassionate and such. Um, and the way that it is so commonly done is so it's both so personal and impersonal all at once. There's all this personal urgency, but then there's also just an impersonal emptiness combined that like it does teach a lot of rule following and a lot of content, but it doesn't teach necessarily how to really cultivate our hearts and um and to develop our minds to have discernment and like an anchored character for tough situations, for example. Um, and
okay,
it's
I
just,
feel like
yeah.
we're really kinda getting off into the weeds about belief and theology and what have you, so let's just save that for actual episodes,
But that's a
leave
little
the
taste. But
introduction as the
that is
introduction.
a little taste. And weren't we going to talk at the end about our dynamic? Isn't that a little segue right into our dynamic?
Yeah, we have kind of a squiggly dynamic. I don't know. It's we can be a little contentious if you hear us getting on
Bubbling.
each other's cases a little bit or pushing back on one another. Please understand that this is something we've done. This is something we will continue to do, and that we both know to speak up when we feel like we need to about protecting our own, uh, egos if necessary, I guess. But at least, our own sense of safety and well being and respect. So,
But we will,
uh,
but we will at times go at it like cats and dogs. And there's some
absolutely,
ADHD
because
going on.
I
Um,
respect you. I don't respect your religion.
I know. And like, I think we both have some ADHD, except that what is it you call mine like scattershot, where it just like never ends and just goes. And then you have your own where you go on tangents, but they're like a really focused
And then,
rant with like a beginning and an end. And for
yeah,
me, I'll
this
go so tangential that I'll forget where I
I don't
started.
have this attention deficit thing. What?
What?
Nothing. Anyway, okay, so why don't we it's been a good introduction, I feel like. Chloe, you have some work to do. I am up way past my bedtime tonight. It's gonna get so late in the ghetto that the only thing I'm gonna hear soon is sirens because that's where I live now. But anyway, for anybody listening, whoever might come along and find this, please feel free to do the things on whatever platform you're getting this. There's like a there it is. There's like a if you're on YouTube, you should like and comment and all that crazy
The
jazz
things.
that they like that tick bells, etc. Subscribe, yada yada, whatever. All the stuff that makes the former vice president's musical timekeeping very happy. Yes, that would be the algorithm, of course. But this has been Talk to Your Plants with Fern and Chloe. And thank you for helping me grow, Chloe. I hope you've grown a little too.
I have.
Okay, take care.